This is the Eric Metaxas Show.
Hey there, folks. I've got a big surprise for you. We had to kick my dear friend Dick Morris to the curb because I think that we need to talk about something else today. Maybe we'll talk to Dick tomorrow. But some of you have heard the story of Joe Oltmann. Joe Oltmann, O-L-T-M-A-N, was all over the news not long ago talking about how he came across a guy named Eric Coomer, who's affiliated with Dominion, and how this Eric Coomer also seems to be so viciously, insanely anti-Trump that Eric Coomer of Dominion is also involved with Antifa. We just thought we'd get Joe Oltmann to tell the story. Joe Oltmann, welcome to this program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Okay, so folks who know nothing about this, first of all, who are you? What is your background? How do you come to bump into somebody like Eric Coomer of Dominion?
So I'm a CEO of a tech company based out of Denver, Colorado. We're a data company, and I guess I can go back and tell you that normally I'd stayed as far out of politics as possible, at least personally. I've been involved in obviously giving to different things, but I started an organization called FEC United in Colorado, and that works off faith, education, and commerce, the pillars of our society, when they basically started taking away constitutional rights of people and communities. So that kind of led to, and if you want, I can just tell you the story of how I got involved and how I even got on my radar, because it's very serendipitous. And I didn't.
I mean, that's why your story is interesting, because you weren't looking for this. You're not political. I mean, you're a person of faith the way I am, but you were just doing something else, and something comes across your radar. You were like, what, on a Zoom call or something?
Yeah, so something like that. They had a conference call, so I'll kind of back up. I back in late September, middle to late September, we had been, because of the work we've been doing on reopening Colorado and kind of stopping, businesses from basically being crushed, while big businesses were given basically a Black Friday event for many months, and small businesses and people that invest businesses were being. We had these Antifa journalists all over Colorado that started writing articles about FEC United, about me personally, and about an organization that we partner with called UADF, United American Defense Force. John Tig Tigan, who's frankly an American hero, is the one that heads up that organization, and that just works to bring people in the community together to protect their community against people who would loot, steal, rob, burn
now,
buildings.
I just got a question. Why would Antifa take issue with what you were doing? Like, that's interesting to me. In other words, I know what they hate, but it doesn't seem that what you're doing is kind of just some basic stuff. How does that get political for them? I don't get that.
Well, I think the big issue for them is the fact that we stood up pretty strong against Antifa and against anyone that would basically hurt people in our community. And we're standing up against this kind of far left agenda that seems to be permeating in a very short period of time our society.
Correct.
So once you get on somebody's radar, they frankly just kind of collect together and just write as many bad things about you as possible.
It's happened to me. I get it. It's where we are right now. So think of it as a badge of honor. So, okay. So where were you when this guy, Eric Coomer of Dominion, comes across your radar?
So I was looking for Antifa journalists. I was looking for journalists that I could basically out as activists and not as people that were actually doing journalism. And so I had a group of people, and we infiltrated Antifa. We infiltrated their meetings. We infiltrated their conference calls. We got information about what they were planning to do next. Not because I really wanted that, but I just wanted to figure out, how they operate. And around this same time, by the way, you'll remember the Project Veritas story that came out with about Chris Jacks, the guy from Our Revolution, who said that he wanted to kill Americans in the street, and that they would lie, cheat, and steal in order to get the results. So I wanted to know what I was up against with Antifa. They had written an article saying that I was a far-right extremist. I'm the farthest thing from far-right, by the way. I sit on boards that are left-leaning, bringing some sensibility to things that they do. I give an enormous amount of money to nonprofits for inner city youth, for education, medical, a number of things. And so I found myself on this phone call this conference call, and this guy named Eric started talking, and then somebody asked who Eric was, and they said Eric's a Dominion guy, right? And so I just started.
Now, excuse me, were you at this point? Were you yourself, or were you kind of lurking on an Antifa meeting?
Yeah, they had no idea I was there.
Okay, so that's the key. So you're kind of hiding. You've infiltrated Antifa, and you're watching the meeting. It's an Antifa meeting. This guy Eric Coomer comes into the meeting. Somebody says, "Who's Eric?" One of these Antifa people says, "Who's Eric Coomer?" And they say, "Oh, he's with Dominion."
Yeah, so they never said the word Coomer, right? It was just Eric. Who's Eric? And then Eric is the Dominion guy. So I just wrote Dominion Eric. I just wrote that down. I really wasn't looking for him. I didn't know the significance of him at all. I still, even after I got off that call, didn't know the significance of it. But then he starts, they tell him that he can keep going on. Go ahead. Somebody interrupts. What are we going to do if Trump wins? Something to that effect. And I'm paraphrasing this, right? So I didn't write down word for word what he said. But Eric responds, "Don't worry about the election. Trump's not going to win. I made effing sure of that." So,
okay, he made effing sure of that. Effing means very, very. Now, let me ask you, for my audience, who is Eric Coomer now? Publicly, who is this guy?
So he is the director of strategy and security for Dominion Voting Systems.
Okay, stop. That's the headline, right? In other words, he's not some guy with Dominion. He is the head of, say it again?
Dominion Voting Systems.
No, but he is the head of...
I'm sorry, he is the director of strategy and security at Dominion Voting Systems.
Okay, so if there's anybody out there who believes that Dominion is just a company that does voting machines, their director of strategy and security despises Donald Trump. That is what came clear to you as you're lurking in this Antifa meeting.
Yes. Well, actually, that's not how I actually discovered all of this stuff. I didn't know what it was. So right after the call, I got the information out of it that I needed. In my mind, when he said it, I started laughing because I was like, these guys are crazy. They think they can just will an election any way they want, like they're Jedi warriors. I actually said that. And I walked back.
Did you know who Dominion was at the time?
No idea.
Yeah, nobody did. Okay, go ahead.
And so I got off the call, and I didn't actually have to use a whole lot of data to do this. It wasn't very clever. I just put into Google Eric Dominion Denver, Colorado. That's it. That's all I did. And up pops, Eric Coomer Dominion Voting Systems. I did a little bit of research, found out that he has a doctorate from Cal Berkeley in nuclear physics. He's a mastermind in coding.
A doctorate. He's a PhD in nuclear physics. So this is a super brilliant guy, director of strategy and security. Now, when you're talking about Dominion voting systems, there is no higher level of security necessary. It's like the guy who we had on this program recently who created the anti-fraud system for eBay. I mean, this is top level coding and that stuff. So this guy, Eric Coomer, this genius, you discover was the guy who said on this Antifa call, "Don't worry about Trump. There's no way he's going to win."
Yeah, and I've also tied him to Our Revolution, the movement. I've tied him to other things. But even at that point, I did not understand what I was looking at. I didn't understand the significance of Dominion voting systems. I didn't actually even get involved in and even going any further. I just set that information aside because I was looking for Antifa journalists, and I was able to uncover quite a few Antifa journalists over a very short period of time.
And when you say that, you mean journalists who are playing the role of journalists, but who are in fact activists for Antifa.
Correct.
As if that wasn't disturbing enough, we're going to put that to the side, right?
And the scary part about that is that as you start uncovering who these people are and how they're connected with other people inside of things like the Humane Society, that they're gathering information there that they can use to dox people that disagree with them. They become journalists for the Business Journal, where they can gather even more information about people's companies.
Folks, we'll be right back with Joe Oltmann. Folks, I'm talking to Joe Oltmann. In case you're not fascinated by this, you're clearly not listening very carefully. So I'd like you to go back and listen to our previous segment. This is insane. Joe Oltmann, you're a little tough to describe, but I guess the point is you're an entrepreneur, you build businesses, but you're also a patriot, a man of faith. You got involved in some stuff, and you understood that Antifa was a threat to America. You infiltrated Antifa meetings, which is utterly heroic and fascinating and wonderful and thrilling and inspirational to everybody listening, frankly. And in the course of that, you come across this guy named Eric Coomer, whom you've described, Director of Strategy and Security at Dominion Voting Systems. The man is pro-Antifa, despises not just Donald Trump, but it seems to me if you're pro-Antifa, despises America. So where do we go from here? You were referring to this meeting in October, okay, so it was a month ago, where you made this statement. So what happens?
But I still didn't know who Eric Coomer was. It still wasn't, to me, none of that actually made any difference to me. I put him aside. I just thought that he maybe worked for the CIA or the FBI. I did not feel that I was dealing with someone that was Antifa material. Fast forward to the election, we all know we went to sleep at night thinking, okay, Trump actually has won this. It's going to be fine. We wake up in the morning to a totally different story, right? And what was odd about that night is that the networks looked like they were working together to not call the election, right? Very strange, right? And if you go back and look, so regardless of that, get past that, we all knew that there was something funny that was up. We saw, big batches of ballots come through at one time at 2:00 in the morning, and then the fraud allegations started rolling in. Well, I went elk hunting on Friday, and I'm up elk hunting in southern Colorado in the mountains. And I get a text message from someone with an article. And so I'm reading the article, which I normally wouldn't do. I get hundreds of emails or texts a day. I just kind of look at it and then respond something. But I actually read this article, and in it, it talked about in Georgia how the election machines went down for a couple hours while an update was installed in the middle of the election day. And if that's not strange enough, as I get further down, Eric Coomer pops up as a spokesperson for Dominion Voting Systems. So at that point, my stomach sank, and I go, "Oh my gosh, I remember that guy." Right. So
you're literally elk hunting at this point.
Right.
Reading your phone.
Yeah.
Okay. So the elk obviously get to live another day.
They did.
You realize that something almost unbelievable is happening.
Yeah. So at that point, I started doing research on Eric Coomer and Dominion Voting Systems. I still, at this point, this is after the election, I did not know that Dominion Voting Systems was in 40 states. I did not know that they had their grasp between 23 and 28 states. I didn't know any of that up to this point. So the more research I did, the more I started seeing Eric Coomer's name come up everywhere. It came up in every RFP in all the swing states, from Arizona to Nevada to Georgia to Pennsylvania, when they actually pulled the RFP from certain parts of Pennsylvania to Michigan to Wisconsin. Everywhere I looked, Eric Coomer's name came up. I started researching lawsuits in different states that he was the expert witness being propped up by Dominion Voting Systems. So he became the proxy for Dominion Voting Systems everywhere. So at that point, I had tied him to Antifa. I didn't have any proof at that point, but I had all this information that showed that he was in my opinion, he was a bad actor. So I said to myself, I need to get access to his social media accounts. So I started basically correlating his Twitter accounts and his Reddit accounts and all the different accounts that he had everywhere. And I got behind his Facebook account. And it was then when I got actually behind and started looking at the posts on his Facebook account that everything kind of came together, that we were dealing with a person that could put his finger firmly on the American voice and tip the scale of the election very easily. And that frankly, that he was doing it. So on June 2nd, he posted the Antifa manifesto on his Facebook page. On May 31st, he put up posts basically that say, F the police, F the USA, dead Prez. These are videos that if you go watch them on YouTube, you'll be just amazed at the type of language. You traced all of his Facebook posts all the way back to 2016, and it was the most vile anti-Trump rants that you could possibly see a person go on. And frankly, it was scary. It was sociopathic. Like it didn't seem like the rantings of a sane individual.
Well, I was going to say, when you're smart enough to get a PhD in nuclear physics, it reminds me of the Unabomber. There's some people that they're learning, or rather, their brains can really, they'll flirt with insanity and violence, and it sounds like you're dealing with somebody who at least begins to fall into that category. We know that Antifa is evil, that they are anti-American, that they are effectively Marxist shock troops at this point. But to have a man with this kind of power, the director of strategy and security at Dominion, huge, powerful international company, this is big news. Now, we're going to have to hold it there for today. We will continue this on the radio program tomorrow. If people want to listen to the rest of my conversation with Joe Oltmann, folks, go to our YouTube channel. We'll post that today. It's probably already posted as you hear my voice. It's the Eric Metaxas Show on YouTube. This is a very, very important conversation. Joe, thank you. We'll continue the conversation in just a moment. Folks, I'm continuing my conversation with Joe Oltmann, just to reprise, and forgive me always for reprising, but Joe, you are a businessman who, because of your faith and your love of country, you got involved in trying to see what's going on with Antifa, and as a result of your efforts, you came across this dude named Eric Coomer, who you had no idea until later was the director of strategy and security for Dominion Voting Systems, who's all in for Antifa. You say he posted their manifesto on his website like way back in June. This is scary stuff. Somebody who has that level of tremendous power, who is all in for Antifa. So when you figured all this out, what did you do?
Oh, first of all, I started digging in and uncovering things like patents and the patents that he had assigned to Dominion Voting Systems. I looked at his history. If you get further down, I started looking at places that Eric Coomer had traveled. And then I started looking at irregularities of the Dominion voting systems in different countries that frankly, that Eric was. So I traced him all the way back to 2012 to Mongolia. They had a massive election issue, and they had used the Dominion voting system in their country. And guess who sold them the Dominion voting system software?
Can I guess Eric Coomer? I'll try Eric Coomer. So, I mean, this is globalist stuff. In other words, this is like everybody's worst nightmare of deep state, George Soros. The idea that a man of this level at a place like Dominion, which is operating all around the globe in elections, which got started in Venezuela, that somebody like that who despises America and who, if you despise America by definition, you become allied with these globalist forces, which are effectively fascist, Marxist, that this guy has this kind of power. I mean, it's scary even just having this conversation with you, thinking about this. And if I didn't have a strong faith, I really would be scared, but I'm not. So what do you do with this information? In other words, did you take this information to Sidney Powell? What did you do with this information?
So, I founded an organization called Conservative Daily, and I used the media personality Joe Otto. We started a podcast 6 months ago that frankly has become one of the really most popular political podcasts now in the nation. So I took it there first, and I said, "Listen, I want to take a 2-hour segment. I'm going to tell you the story about Eric Coomer." And so I did that, and then from there, I started posting things on Twitter.
But this is like what, 10 days ago?
Yeah.
I mean, this just happened. This is like 10 days ago after the election. So At what point does this get picked up, and who picked it up?
So then Michelle Malkin picked it up. Once she picked it up, I did an interview with her. Then Twitter shut down my Twitter feed. Eric Coomer started basically scraping the internet of his name. Literally taking everything Eric Coomer off the internet, everything. And Dominion took them off their website. They took them off of Lead Candy. They basically went into archives to delete his information in places you didn't think were possible.
Has anybody reported this? Who has reported this?
So I reported it. Michelle has reported it. Some other people have reported it. I got in touch with the Trump campaign and the Trump attorneys. I talked to people like Sidney Powell. Actually, I talked to Sidney Powell, but getting as much of this information in their hands as possible. I've been in constant contact with the Trump attorneys. I've done probably a dozen or so video interviews and probably 2 or 3 dozen radio interviews. I continually push that information out, give that information.
But what I'm saying is that so you're getting this information into their hands, which is the most important thing. But, for my audience, it's just fascinating to think that here we are talking about this, and this is not widely known. This seems to me to be so extremely important that it is surprising to me that Fox News has not covered it. Has Tucker Carlson mentioned any of this stuff?
No. The closest that it came was when Sidney Powell on her interviews stated that there's an affidavit signed. That was my affidavit. So I did sign an affidavit.
Signed to what effect? To what? Of all of these things?
All of these things, all the information that I'm giving you. And then, frankly, I just started using more of the tools that I had in order to create more information for different media sources and the attorneys.
Now, is that affidavit not public because they don't want the other side to know what they're cooking up here? I mean, is it?
Well, I think that for me, it's already become a security risk. I have 2 guards that are guarding my family at this point. The threats have rolled in.
You're over the target. You're over the target.
Very much so over the target. And I'm also not a fearful person. So I believe that God will protect me, and what God can't protect on one side, I believe in the Second Amendment, so I'll protect the other side.
Yeah.
A little bit of humor in the middle of all this.
Yeah. You think birdshot will cover it, or do you have more bigger weapons?
Among other things, I own quite a few companies, and one of them is a gun store and range. So I think I'm pretty well protected.
All right, I like what I'm hearing. Okay, so the biggest, what are the biggest interviews you've done? Because what you're telling me is so big that you said you've spoken on Michelle Malkin's program.
Yeah.
Have you spoken to any other main national programs?
Yeah, OAN did a segment on it. I've done, I don't know how big everyone is. Again, I'm an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. So I'm not one of those people that just runs out there and tries to put the story out there. I'm doing as much as I can to put it out there and giving it to people like you who have influence, have the ability to tell the story. But there's 2 things that I don't need. I don't need notoriety, and I don't need money. And so this just goes against everything that a person like me would want to do, right? I'm only doing it not because I support Trump, because I do want you to know I support my president 100%, but because what's more important than supporting President Trump is making sure that the American voice is actually heard, making sure that whatever the people of this country vote for, that is the will of the people. And for somebody to put their finger on that scale and tip that scale away from the voice of the American people turns us from a constitutional republic to, frankly, a communist society. So that's exactly
why I'm so exercised about this. The idea that anyone would dare to try to mess with our elections. Many patriots have died, suffered and died, so that we could have what we have. And I cannot think of anything more despicable and more worthy of our doing everything we can, including give our lives if necessary, to fight for this. And so that's why I'm so glad to be speaking with you and getting this information out. People need to understand. I keep saying we need 1,000 Paul Reveres to get this information out. This is utterly unacceptable. There's no way that anyone will accept the presidency of Joe Biden under this black cloud now, unless they can prove that this was a fair election, there is no way the American people, with all this evidence coming out, are going to accept it. So
well, we have a bigger problem, and that is we're ignoring science and math, right? We're ignoring those two things. If you use Benford law, which is a law of anomalies and statistical improbabilities, it'll actually tell you that there's massive amounts of fraud. There's people
Sure.
that are coming out that are MIT PhDs in mathematics that are being silenced. There's a weaponization of technology and the media like we've never seen before, that has this concerted effort in order to silence people like me and others that are coming forward with information that is massive amounts of proof. Yet they keep saying that there's no proof, there's no proof, there's no proof. Look, the smoking gun is actually pieces and parts of the gun that they've walked through security to the other side. So as you take the piece that I have and put it together with other pieces, it's undeniable that we have massive amounts of voter fraud in this country, and you have a concerted effort by, you want to call it the deep state, I don't know what to call it, other than people that are anti-American that have come together with the idea that they can destroy the very fiber of what our country represents.
These are people working on the side of evil. Let's cut to the chase. This is satanic evil. Anybody who wants to cheat and lie, we know that's wrong. But when you cheat and lie as a way to shut down the voice of American voters, that rises to a whole new level, because this country has been the shining torch of freedom for the whole world. So we're affecting it. Of course, it affects the whole world. We know that. We don't need to get into that. You're not looking for publicity or money. Unfortunately, I'm looking for both. So I need to talk to you offline. Just kidding. But the fact is that, so it's not like you want me to send people to your website or something. You said you have it. What is the podcast?
It's Conservative Daily Podcast.
Okay, that's the least we can do. We're going to go to a break. We'll continue this conversation. Folks, I'm talking to Joe Oltmann, Oltmann. We'll be right back. Folks, I'm talking to Joe Oltmann, Oltmann, 2 N's at the end there. Okay, Joe, you uncover something so huge. You weren't looking for this. You stumble onto the fact that a guy named Eric Coomer is the director of strategy and security for Dominion Voting Systems. Absolutely monstrous job. You've got to be a super genius to understand that world of fraud and coding and all this different stuff. And then you discover that guy is all in for Antifa, wants to do anything he can with his tremendously powerful position to make sure Donald Trump is not elected. He effectively succeeds, because we wake up on the 4th of November and find out that, hey, well, what happened? What happened? And then this stuff leaks out, and that kind of leads you on your path. So where are you now, and where is this now? Does all this information just sit with Sidney Powell and others, and that this is going to be part of the case that they bring maybe before the Supreme Court?
Yeah, so I want you to know that I'm giving the information to everyone, right? So I'm talking to people from congressmen to different committees in Congress to people in the DOJ. I've sent this information to. Obviously, people have reached out to you and said, hey, you need to have a conversation with this guy. So I literally spend all day putting as much of this information out there as possible. I even have Snopes that basically reached out to me and tried to intimidate me into giving them the information or else, to which they actually posted something that says that what I said is unproven. I don't actually know how you could say that what I said is unproven, but he said that if I didn't give it to him by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, that they were it was an or else type of.
Ooh, Snopes. We all know Snopes is kind of a joke at this point. And it's a pity, because 5 years ago I thought, hey, I'm so glad they exist, but they're left wing and you can't really take them very seriously. Eric Coomer, has he gone into hiding? What is he thinking? Does he know he's going to go to prison for the rest of his life?
So the scary part about all of this is that Eric Coomer is a ghost, right? So I do know that. And again, it's more morbid curiosity on my side to basically track what he's doing, what he's saying, and how he's engaging in different environments. So I am still watching those things. I am watching right now as different states take their RFPs. In Colorado, they literally redacted everything that had Eric Coomer on the RFP document that Dominion.
What is RFP? What is that?
Request for proposal. So it's basically a brief that that has to be public information. So Gina Griswold went in and actually Secretary of State of Colorado and removed the RFP, got rid of it, put it in a different place, redacted information that actually tied Smartmatic, Venezuela, and Eric Coomer to the document, and then uploaded other documents, forgetting about the fact that the other documents that they uploaded that were dated back in 2017 had the wrong address on them. So I'm telling you right now, if you tie all of this together, there is something just cynical happening across the country to the American people. And while media is actually out there saying that there's nothing to see here, I mean, even Michael Steele, the PR guy that actually represents Dominion voting systems, came out and said, "Oh, their system can't do that." Right before the Dominion was supposed to testify in front of the legislative body for Pennsylvania, I was called by one of the congressmen and said, "Hey, can you provide information?" I provided that information to that congressman. He provided that information to the legislative body. And then all of a sudden, 2.5 hours later, they said, "Hey, we're not going to show up." I was asked to write questions for the legislative body to ask Dominion Voting Systems about irregularities. I wrote a list of questions, and they decided that they were going to lawyer up. Why, if there's no fraud against the American people, has Eric Coomer disappeared? Why are they redacting information all over the internet? Why is Dominion packing up their offices? They packed up their Denver office. They packed up the Toronto office. The Toronto office is actually is on the same floor as Soros's nonprofit. So this isn't all made up. This isn't hyperbole that we're just throwing out there. This is absolute fact. And why is Twitter cutting me off? Why did they actually make up some bogus claim that I had multiple Twitter accounts when I've only had one Twitter account? I didn't even like Twitter, nor did I even use it until 2 weeks ago.
Well, there's levels of stupidity and evil, and we know that not everybody's on the same level, that there's some people that they just hate Trump, but then there are other nefarious actors like Mr. Coomer and others who, they're it's hard to know what to say other than there's wickedness, there's evil here, because nothing that they're doing, even if you hate Trump, I have many friends who hate Trump, but they would never do what we're talking about. What we're talking about is evil. In fact, let's just say this, it's extremely criminal, and these folks know they're going to go to jail for the rest of their lives. Doesn't matter how rich or smart they are, that they are in the process of being caught, thanks to God, because you just stumbled across this. God chose you to stumble across this, to get this information out. I'm very encouraged by your mere existence, Joe Oltmann, just to know that you are who you are and doing what you're doing. I'm really encouraged, as I say. It seems to me that there's a lot more here. Maybe we'll save this for another time when you're not pheasant hunting. But I thank God for you. I know my audience thanks God for you and for knowing what's going on, and it gives us a lot of hope for these lawsuits that lie ahead. Thank you.
All right, thank you. God bless you, and God bless your audience, and God bless our president. We need to pray for him. We need to pray for our country.
We are doing that. We're doing prayer calls every other night. Big prayer calls. I'll tell you about that in a moment. But we'll end this segment. Thank you. Quick question. Do you share the values of the people who sell you things?
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell.
I can tell you that I do. I love Mike Lindell, not just Mike Lindell, but what he stands for.
And I encourage you to use this time at home to get back in the Word, read our Bibles, and spend time with our families.
The dude said that at the White House. How can you not love him?
What difference at this point does it make?
No, actually, it does make a difference. How you spend your money is as important as how you vote. And you don't want to, help elect some crazy guy, do you?
You may cut me, man, but I'm going to wrap this chain around your head.
Did he just say that?
If you fell off sideways, you landed on the darn cement.
So if you want your money to support good things, visit mypillow.com.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
And please use the discount code ERIC or Metaxas.
If you used pomade in your hair, you had to wear a bathing cap.
A bathing cap? Anyway, please go to mypillow.com and use the code ERIC or Metaxas.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.